वो एक गवर्निंग प्रिंसिपल रहा है कि किसी के रिसर्च में कोई बाधा ना आए. इंस्टीट्यूट विल ट्राई टू डू दैट. अब 1970 तक तो सर सीवी रामन ने खुद इंस्टीट्यूट चलाया था अपने पैसों पे. उसके बाद डीएसटी ने बहुत साल से 1971 we are the first autonomous institute. We came up almost within a year of the Department of Science and Technology being set up.
And let's jump into the part 2 of the interview where we talk about the science in the country and science which is happening in the various institutes in the country. So in the part 2, let's so welcome again in the part 2, and let's start with something like what has happened in a few months back. So sir, you have given the charge of RRI, Raman Research Institute. So how things have been changed? You were in ISA and you have become the director of the institute. So how things have changed and what are your visions about the institute?
Yeah, so let me also tell you that I am a faculty at IUCA. So I had gone on deputation as the chair of a department, the Department of Physics in ISA. So that was my first step into worrying about the research of others at the same level of my research. Earlier, it was largely my research programs that I worried about. As the director, of course, that is even more. So I need to worry about how to make you know an institute produce the best results, and not necessarily in my field, or even we have quite a few very interesting, exciting themes of research here. So, for example, we have researchers working on what is called the quantum information, quantum technology, and they're absolutely doing fantastic work.
I've talked
That's,
about one of them. I've
I
talked to
see.
one of them,
I
Dr.
see.
Urvashi Sinha.
Yes. So her lab, as well as there are three other labs, they're doing fantastic work. We have also researchers working on radio astronomy, which is a close cousin of my core area, but they are also doing very path-breaking work. In fact, there was a Nature paper recently showing one of the instruments built here, you know, uh, is the most sensitive instrument at this point for seeing the epoch of reionization. That's the epoch at which galaxies first form, right? First galaxies, right? And that's exciting. So then we have also the condensed matter physicists, soft condensed matter physicists who work on biological systems, also on soft materials, and there's a lot of exciting science at that level. And then we have theoretical physicists, so we have people working on quantum gravity, we have people working on statistical physics, and there's a lot of overlap in their interests. And my thing is to sort of find how to make a unified form as a front for the institute, as doing frontier sciences which are all linked together, and produce. So Raman Research Institute, every institute has its heritage and culture. So Raman, you know that so CV Raman set up the institute in 1948, and he is, of course, the only Nobel laureate in the country. So, from our country, unfortunately, but that's the truth. And what should be realized is, although he's known for Raman effect, he worked on multiple things. So he had a breadth of things, and these are all related. I mean, so he worked on musical instruments. He's worked on
From
Raman's
string to percussion, all instruments.
everything, right? So it's a basic interest in what was the frontiers there, right? So the Raman effect was something that was frontiers, right, at the time that it was detected. So I interpret the heritage to be, working at the frontiers of science, and you can't do everything from a small institute. So these are few themes of research where there are researchers working. Maybe new themes would emerge. We would have you will have that balance. Changing as we move forward. But it's a more perspective on institute and what it can do, what kind of support it can get for the aims that we do. Another aspect of our institute is we have you know experiments which we are doing have a space component. So we work very closely with ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. So you've talked to Dr. Urvashi Sinha. So she's the scientist involved in the secure communication satellite that they're planning to, send up, which is, the next future of, what you would say quantum communication, right? So
Quantum
we'll have a
communication, quantum
yes,
computing.
and quantum computing, there are, as I said, there are researchers you should talk to who are setting up cold atom traps where quantum computing can happen, or working on Rydberg state atoms where you can do things like quantum entanglement. These are all happening here. But this fact that you're trying to take quantum experiments to space, and then we have similarly in astrophysics, we have X-ray group of X-ray, uh, astrophysicists who are sending a payload next year called POLIX. The payload is called POLIX. The satellite is called POLSAT, which will be a X-ray satellite capable of looking at polarized, measuring the polarization of X-rays. And this is again all built here and going there. I told you about radio astronomy. We have here, antenna that is looking out for epoch ionization. But that one also is being sent to, we have a proposal for sending it to space, ideally to the dark side of the moon, but we may go in steps. And again, that's science. So one interesting common thread I see is that many of the fundamental science we are doing relates to the space platform, using the uh, you know space platform, and that may be a very interesting path for RRI to explore further.
Okay. So, sir, one thing that I have read in the biography of Sir C.V. Raman, उन्होंने ये चीज लिखी थी कि कई बार इंस्टीट्यूट्स में ऐसा होता है कि रिसर्च जहाँ होती है वहाँ रहने खाने का ठिकाना नहीं होता, जहाँ रहने खाने का ठिकाना है वहाँ रिसर्च अच्छी नहीं होती. सो दैट इंस्टीट्यूट वाज बिल्ट ऑन द पर्पस कि वहाँ पर रिसर्च के लिए सारी सुविधाएं मौजूद हो, प्लस रहने और खाने के लिए चाहे फैकल्टी हो चाहे स्टूडेंट्स हो, सबके लिए सारी चीजें जो है वो मौजूद हों. तो आप अभी उस इंस्टीट्यूट में हैं और जब आप आए थे और अभी अभी के टाइम पर आप कैसे देखते हैं कि वो सारी चीजें जो सर सीवी रामन ने एक सपना देखा था और उसके बेसिस पे उन्होंने एक जो अपना ये इंस्टीट्यूट बिल्ड किया है, क्या वो सारी चीजें अभी वहां पर दिखाई पड़ती हैं कि रिसर्च भी है और सारी फैसिलिटीज भी हैं और स्टूडेंट्स को मतलब मौका भी मिल रहा है कि अपनी जो है रिसर्च को पुट फॉरवर्ड करने का?
वो तो है. आई मीन अभी हमारे यहाँ फैकल्टी मेंबर्स के लिए रिसर्च लैब्स वेल फंडेड है, काम चल रहा है. स्टूडेंट्स कैंपस पे नहीं रहते हैं. मेन कैंपस जो है उसमें स्टूडेंट हॉस्टल्स की जगह नहीं है, बट वो रहते हैं 1 किलोमीटर या 2 किलोमीटर दूर. ये जो जहाँ रहते हैं वो भी सीवी रामन का ही प्रॉपर्टी पे बिल्ट हॉस्टल्स हैं. तो पास ही रहते हैं, और इवन ऑल्सो पास है, फिर भी there are shuttles going back and forth for them to do. So I think that way we have good arrangement for students to work. I don't think they are hampered in their work. Of course, खाना वगैरह है, it can be improved. But of course, if you talk to any graduate student, and I was a graduate student also at some point, so you know, hostel food is never good enough. But that is that apart. I think खाना I've been, you know, I haven't मैंने जब जहाँ तक बात किया है किसने ऐसा तो नहीं बोला कि खाने से प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. Means it, obviously if you have a type of food it gets monotonous. So that's anyway that's a side. But आप जो बोल रहे थे हाँ वो एक गवर्निंग प्रिंसिपल रहा है कि किसी के रिसर्च में कोई बाधा ना आए. इंस्टीट्यूट विल ट्राई टू डू दैट. अब 1970 तक तो सर सीवी रामन ने खुद इंस्टीट्यूट चलाया था अपने पैसों पे. उसके बाद डीएसटी ने बहुत साल से 1971 we are the first autonomous institute. We came up almost within a year of the Department of Science and Technology being set up. So we are the first autonomous institute of that. It was recognized that such an institute needs support from the government. And that has been very forthcoming. अभी तक तो रिसर्च के लिए पैसे आते हैं. बट ऑफ कोर्स माहौल चेंज हुआ है. पहले सिर्फ डीएसटी से आते थे. अभी बहुत लोग जैसे टॉक टू डॉक्टर उद्देश सिन्हा, you know that we have a huge project which ISRO is funding. Similarly, there are people who have huge projects being funded by, you know, different. We also have a project being funded by Ministry of Information Technology in the quantum thing, and also in the other fields there are standard grants that were there. तो पैसे की तो अभी तक इतनी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, given the institute is where it is. Now going forward, of course, मेरे हिसाब से we have to grow to a certain extent, grow facilities as well as get new people, and also look into uh, exploring opening of themes that are more contemporary. I mean, if you imagine someone like Raman being here, you know, he would be at probably the frontiers of, you know, something like the light and matter physics kind of thing, or so that these frontiers keep changing. So there are areas that are very promising for the next decade or two. And मेरी इच्छा है कि उन एरियाज में हम पहले से ही यहाँ इस्टेब्लिश कर लें. एक गलती जो हमारे यहाँ बहुत बार होती है कि एक फील्ड जब बहुत वेल नोन हो जाती है तब हम सोचते हैं कि अरे इसमें काम करना चाहिए. एंड दैट आई रियलाइज, आई मीन मे बी एक स्पेसिफिक इंस्टेंस है मेरे लिए, बट मैं जब 2000 में आया था कॉस्मिक माइक्रो बैकग्राउंड तब बहुत यू नो तेजी पकड़ रही थी. बट वो डब्ल्यू मैप के रिजल्ट्स के बाद it became common, you know, Scientific American, everywhere people started talking about it. I found that that is when I was asked, oh, why don't we have our own experiment? But we have already lost a generation, because if we had to catch up, then my generation should have been much bigger to be able to catch up. And so gravitational waves we have done somewhat better. हमने एटलीस्ट 10 साल पहले सोचना शुरू किया डिस्कवरी के, और अभी तक ग्रेविटेटिव वेव एस्ट्रोनॉमी हो रही है, पर जिस स्ट्रेंथ में हो रही है अभी तक, यू नो, LIGO India will play a big role in enhancing that. So वो थोड़ा पहले से सोचना चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से कि क्या आने वाला है 10 साल में. वो मेरी पर्सनल थिंकिंग है. आई मीन मैं ऐसा नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि सबको ऐसा सोचना चाहिए, पर मैं ऐसे सोचता हूँ कि 5 साल बाद क्या करना चाहिए, 10 साल बाद क्या करना चाहिए. दैट इज हाउ आई हैव बिल्ट माई करियर. सो आई कैन एंटिसिपेट करना चाहिए कि ये होने वाला है, या इस टाइप की चीज में अभी काम उस समय इतने लोग नहीं करेंगे, तो हम वी शुड गो एंड टेक दैट, यू नो, मास्टर दैट एरिया. सो है ऐसा. There are areas which are still developing where we need to get in now.
Okay, that's a very good thing that I have heard. कि कोई डायरेक्टर जो है इंस्टीट्यूट की सिर्फ तारीफ नहीं कर रहे, एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं कि हमारे पास एक रीजन है वेयर वी कैन ग्रो। वरना
Hmm.
कई बार ऐसा होता है कि अगर कोई इंस्टीट्यूट के डायरेक्टर है तो वो बस तारीफ 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 करते जाते हैं और बस खत्म हो जाता है, वो एकदम मोनोटोनस हो जाता है,
नहीं
मेरे को
नहीं, पर
पसंद नहीं
वो
आता।
तो कोई, आई मीन किसी को भी ना, जिसको बोलते कंफर्ट जोन में चले गए
हम्म।
तो प्रॉब्लम है. इफ यू थिंक यू आर हैप्पी विद व्हाट यू आर, देन यू कैन
हम्म।
नेवर मेक प्रोग्रेस. दैट्स माय अगेन माय फिलोसफी.
जी।
इफ यू थिंक ओके इतना हो रहा है तो इतने में खुश रहो, तो फिर आगे नहीं बढ़ पाओ. I mean, as a country, as a person, as a group, community, also as a country.
Sure, sir. That's a very good thing, and that we should learn. That we should learn from. This is a very good thing. Comfort zone can make us setback.
Yeah, it's a big, I mean, big problem to say, okay, fine, this is how we want to do.
Ji. Okay, sir. One thing that science communication has been a huge topic to be uh, concerned by many institutes nowadays. Like you people have like posted a position for science communicator a few days back,
Yeah.
and even the TIFR and other institutes are like promoting science communication. So me as a science communicator and my friends who have been doing this thing, so uh, what are your thoughts and what do you think about think that why science communication is important and how it can integrate with the research that is going on in one lab?
Again, science communication is vital, and it's our duty to begin with. So again, मेरे लिए ये बहुत naturally हुआ था क्योंकि I joined under Professor Jayant Narlikar, who is not only a very renowned scientist, I mean, of absolutely fantastic fame, but he is also an amazing science communicator. और उनका हर समय कहना था कि ये तुम्हारी, it's a responsibility as scientists when you're working with the money from the public. You have to tell the public, you have to, communicate to the public the excitement of the science, to allow the public to be part of it, or the young students. So that way, I think I was very strongly influenced by that. And in fact, if you look at LIGO-India history and look at mega efforts, I think we from day one absolutely made it very open and clear that हमारी ये इंटेंशन है, हम ये करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. एंड आई थिंक हमने ठीक किया था वो, क्योंकि people should also get an opportunity to know what we are trying to do. It's not as, it's not a small amount of money. So we have to tell you how exciting it is to get into that field. And हमने वो किया. मेरे हिसाब से अगेन ये चीज पहले हमारे एकेडेमिया में नहीं की जाती थी. वो मे बी पार्ट ऑफ इट वाज अ मॉडेस्टी थिंग. मींस हमें भी पहले पहले लाइक इंडिया में बहुत लोग बोलते थे कि अभी तक कुछ किया नहीं तो बोलते क्यों. बट मेरा कहना था कि हम करने की कोशिश करें, ये भी तो बताना चाहिए.
Hmm.
राइट एट दिस पॉइंट आई थिंक इट शुड बी वेरी क्लियर. आई मीन वी शुड बी अपफ्रंट एंड ओपन कि हम ये करना चाहते हैं. कर पाए नहीं पाए, दैट इज अप टू आवर कैपेबिलिटी. And if we are not able to deliver, we should be open to public criticism. Just like, public may applaud us for the efforts. If we are not able to keep up and, match the expectations, then we should be open. And in that aspect, science communication is very important. Just to be upfront and open. Apart from that, we have a huge country, untapped talents, and, we need science communication and proper science communication. I think there's people, it should be looked as a profession, not as something that you know, moved into because you were looking for something to do, right? And that I think is, I mean, it's good to have a science base, but for example, ISA Pune is planning to set up, not a science communication thing, but a department for science education. A part of that will be also, I hope, trying to promote students. We have a bunch of very, very bright students, and not everyone should do quantum gravity, string theory, or gravitational waves or whatever the frontier things. But there may be people who are talented, and they are, students who are extremely good at writing articles in our student journals and all. They should have an opportunity to explore this as a profession. They will come trained for that, and they will, know how to take this. And that professionalism in science communication is very, very okay. And that is improving. I must say, over the 10 or 12 years that I've been interacting more with, as, science reporters and all, the level of science reporting has gone up significantly. But the basic problem, the point in India is we are a huge country. Okay, we have to do a lot more. हमारे इसमें country बड़ी है, diversity बहुत है, and that these are all good things, right? So हम जो बातें करते हैं हिंदी इंग्लिश, बट एक बंगाल का स्टूडेंट या उड़ीसा का स्टूडेंट या तमिलनाडु का स्टूडेंट अगर समझ नहीं पा रहा है, राइट, सो देयर शुड बी, वहां भी कुछ लोग होने चाहिए जो वो बात वहां बोले, जो अपनी उनकी मातृभाषा में बोले, उनकी, ये चीज भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि हम सबसे ज्यादा सीखते हैं हमारे व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द मदर टंग,
Mother tongue.
मातृभाषा में. सो it is very important, and I think um, no, this is when I think things are improving because this has been very well recognized in the last decade and a half. I don't think earlier there was that much emphasis, and there was, in fact, a lot of hesitation for people to speak out what they are doing, right? And I think that has gone. And I would encourage researchers not to keep it to yourself. I mean, see, if I am excited about something, if I'm spending days working on my research, I should feel like if you come and ask me what am I doing, I should be excited and tell you, right? What's the secret there? I'm trying this, and it may be something in research. There's a
That's
one
what
thing that,
happened to me in like on 6th of May, on 6th of May or 12th of May, the black hole image came. And like I've been interviewing scientists for a very long time. So this was a like a privilege for me that I can talk someone on call, like yes, I want to
yes,
talk about this. And I talked to the scientists who were concerned with the field, like radio astronomer and Dr. Prajwal Shastri, who have been
hmm,
working in the like supermassive black holes. So I can talk to these people, and these people are ready to
exactly,
share their knowledge with the people. And
yeah,
that just that not just gives the information, but it also decreases the chance of spreading of misinformation.
yes. I
There's a
think,
lot of misinformation in like there are a lot of myths in the
yeah,
YouTube space and
right.
in the internet. So that also decreases the chances of spreading those things.
Yeah, so it's very important. I mean, I that's why, you usually do not refuse interviews of this kind. It's not so much that I want my voice to be heard, but it's important that
Yes, sir.
people know what scientists feel, and everyone. I would encourage everyone to do that. I mean, it's very important for people to also know what science means, and from very different perspectives. I'll give my perspective, but someone else, and that's how you create an image, but it's based on people who are really working. So if you want to know about a car, you should talk to a automobile engineer, not to the salesman, right? So that important gap has to be made. And I'm also very excited that you know the science communication is being done at a increasingly better way, right? Because earlier many things were, a bit disappointing, because if you ask people for a story on something, they would pick up from the websites of NASA, ESA, all they have, of course, very well developed science communication things, and that is good to an extent. But we should also create our own environment into do that. Again, ISA Pune, I should mention, has a, science and media cell. It's a separate capability, and they do fantastic work. So I have got them to make little videos on various things at a very short notice, and they do the script writing, they know professionally, they do the
You
editing,
can
and
you can tell me also. I would
yeah,
like to be. It would be great to be a part of
yeah.
something.
So Science and Media Center, they have a website, and I know them well. So it would be interesting. So we are trying to sort of encourage them by engaging with RRI also on certain things. For example, they're very aspect. I mean, the kind of research we do. Also, a lot is known about Raman, but not so much as many other scientists, right?
Actually,
And
this
there's a
is
huge
my personal
story.
project, sir. This is my personal project. I
Mm,
have been talking about Raman since 2017, and
mm,
I have interviewed people who are related to him, and I have read books related to him. So I really want uh, his story to get into the public domain, because his story is not something like a perfect scientist kind of thing. His story is
mm,
like he learned from his mistakes, he did well, he stood up, he went for research, he did many things.
yeah.
And that's beautiful thing. That sorry, I haven't interrupted you, but
No, no, no.
on
That's
his name,
perfect. I mean,
on his name I get a bit
yeah. So
excited.
we are also, so amongst the things that it was already happening at some level, but I'm encouraging it a lot more, is to really uncover as much as we know about Raman. So, every few days you come up with things that people did not know from the archives. Like, if you look out from my window, you can see a tree, which is called Raman Tree. This is where,
Papaya tree or something,
no, no,
which
Raman, it's called the Raman Tree. That's because I don't know whether you can see it if I turn the. No, I don't think it's. Don't have the resolution to see it. But right out of on the main lawn, there's a big tree, tall tree that was planted at the spot where his cremation happened, and his ashes are buried there. And there's an interesting story about that, right? Which emerged like our first director of Ramanujan Institute was Radhakrishnan, and he felt that there should be a living memorial. And so now a few days back I saw those letters, and and there's a nice blog written by a former administrative officer. You should look at it, Krishna Maraju, and it has those letters. So he said, I don't want a cold brass or whatever stone memorial, something living. So they looked for a tree that would tower over all the tall trees. We have a lot of eucalyptus trees in the garden, in the compound. And so they picked up one, which was only available within the known thing was one of the Tata, uh, you know, install places. Tata has many, many places. So you have to look at the letter, but one of the places had that tree, and saplings were brought from there. And there were communications, very interesting communications with the head office at Tata, how cooperative they were. He was sent by train, and then nursed in the nursery of IISc, brought here, and then this was planted. So there's amazing stories around this, which should be interesting to see how much of the other thing that emerges when you look at scientists in detail is the human aspect of it. Okay, as humans, we all have our strengths and failings.
hmm,
And, so one should not be judgmental of that. I mean, one should see what you've done, but you should realize that, and that I feel to me is the strongest inspiration for any student who wants to get into science. Science is looked as, at least it's not an elitist thing. You don't, you're not born a scientist. And, if you want to do science, there are many, many ways, different ways you can, you can have different strengths in which you are adding to science. And science communication is a major aspect of it, right? So I think uh, the whole ecosystem being strong is what makes the nation strong in science and technology. It's not just having towers of excellence and very narrow things. It has to have that entire pyramid and structure.
Okay. So last question of this part, and
Yeah.
we would move towards the last and the final part of this
Oh,
interview. Uh, what do you think about the future of science communication in India? Will there be some permanent jobs in the coming time, like the institutes like RRI, ICER, IASC? Will there be some permanent positions for this? For the people who have been doing science communication for a time and who have done something like some projects and something, so will there be something?
no, there are. I mean, I look at it positively. I think it's getting better, and institutes are looking for positions at this point. Probably many of them are contract positions, but I'm sure some of them will convert very soon into permanent positions because, as I said, this is at least being appreciated as an integral part of a science and technology institute, right? So many ISOs, IITs, as well as labs are doing it. So I wouldn't say that's. In fact, it's a very interesting area, as I said, to get into. The possibilities and the job in an institute is one part, but also the ability to do this where you also have a way of, if you're good at writing books, there are a lot of people who are making a mark on those things. And so it's a broad scale of possibility. There is a vacuum. I mean, not much exists in terms of scientific literature, science communication literature, right? So I think it's a gap that will be filled very soon. And this, I very much think it will become an integral part of science, which it should. I mean, uh, the science communication being just like another job in the scientific domain, science.
So this was the second part. As you all know, we will be talking about the personal aspects of the life of the scientist. So let's begin with that. So, sir, first I would like to ask, what were your inspirations? Who were your inspirations when you were growing up, and what made you? What was the driving force for you to become a scientist, and
Okay,
especially an astrophysicist and cosmologist in India?
okay. My story is a bit dull. It's not as if if you are brought up in Delhi, it's not the sky which can attract you because you can't see anything much. So I won't say I was gazing at stars as a child, but I came
So
from
you were
art.
in you were born
I
brought up
was
in
brought up,
Delhi.
not born, but I came at the age of 2 to Delhi. So my whole schooling and everything was.
Where were you?
I was at Bal Bharati Public School, and before that, at a small school in my neighborhood called Faith Academy, and then Raisina Bengali High Secondary School, and then I went to.
You were in like central Delhi region.
Yeah, I was brought up in Patel Nagar. I come from a family where my father was a very renowned cartoonist, and he moved in the 70s to Delhi and focused a lot more on children's book illustration. I think becoming a scientist was one of many things I could have because the way we were brought up, we were not really told what you should grow up to. So, in fact, till class 10th, people thought I would be probably not going to science. In fact, my brothers were very good in science. So, two of my elder brothers, and I wasn't that uh, great. And so I was more into English literature as to write, and I started writing things. So, but I think after 10th, 11th, 12th, I had a very nice maths teacher as well as in Rasina. He just recently passed away, so I should, really thank a lot of my, uh, challenge. I mean, the reason was that he was a maths teacher who's so good that getting 100 out of 100 in his exams were not was a challenge for my brothers, and so that was so that I took up as a challenge, and then I spent a lot of time picking up science and this thing, and then I went to IIT for that. So at IIT we had a very interesting situation. I was an engineer, so I was in engineering, but we were taught physics exactly the same way that a 5 year physics graduate in IIT was also taught. So we had this integrated masters in physics. Uh, so, and the teachers also, there were some courses which, of course, these teachers deny it, but I thought they were designed to attract engineers into physics. The physics department was excellent. In fact, if you really look at it, there are many people from my generation who are doing very well in science in India. So if you want to talk about directors, the current director of TIFA was a year senior to me, electrical engineer. A few years senior to him was the director of National Center for Radio Astronomy, Sandeep Trivedi, a few years senior, but he did his physics 5 year thing. So there are many engineers who moved from this thing. We also have colleagues in RRI who are there. Uh, so physics was a very strong thing, and that's where I got excited and I took courses outside. There were a lot of open electives you could take, so I had taken general relativity, and that sort of was the first time I would say there was some idea of being very attracted to this whole gravitation phenomena. Right. I mean, not that I understood too much, and we were taught also. A part of the course was taught by Professor C.V. Vishweshwara, the very famous person now. I mean, always, but now with the ring down signal and all, he is the one who predicted it. He was a tremendous institute, and he taught a part of the course. So when I graduated, I worked for a part of a year in the automobile engineering, and then I decided to move to science. And typically, if anyone asks me what area you work to, I mean, in fact, I said that to the Joint Astronomy Program interview. They asked me what would you like to work on, and I said generative. Not that I knew too much, but that was the excitement. I think that is where, I mean, so it wasn't so much as staring at the sky. I started appreciating that more because later I had more opportunities to see much clearer skies than available in Delhi.
So that was beautiful. That was something kind of uh, engineers will relate to it, because a lot of engineers take engineering nowadays as like देख लेंगे चलो ले लेते हैं अभी मिल रहा है तो ले लेते हैं. But then
Mm,
many of them switch their branches, and they some goes to physics, some goes to management and all. So this thing also happens, and
mm.
they will relate to it, and they will get inspired also. सो सर अगर आप मतलब वैज्ञानिक नहीं होते तो आप अगर क्या बनना चाहते, व्हाट वाज इन योर माइंड?
नहीं वही बोला बस इन स्कूल डेज 10वीं में जब था मुझे लिखने का बहुत शौक था. और दिल्ली में बड़ा हुआ था तो इंग्लिश एंड हिंदी इंग्लिश. I mean, my Hindi is not that great because Bengali doesn't have gender, so you notice that my Hindi has that problem. But English में लिखने का शौक था. मुझे अभी भी लगता है कि उस वो शौक के लिए ही मैं बहुत कुछ अभी भी लिख पाता हूँ. And I do write, but I don't get enough time. But if not, I may have been, writing. Uh, my father was an artist. My eldest brother is a very good artist. Elder brother, mix of art. Father had many things. I mean, he used to write as well as draw, paint, everything. So of that, I think the part that little part that I probably picked up is writing. So that may be something I will got into, but I'm not so sure. I'm also I tend to be a more focused. So you know I really focus on science now, and then maybe post retirement I'll write books. I don't know. Let's see if I have the
Nice.
time.
That would be some people would wait for that. Some people would wait for something to be coming, something new would be coming. So are there any scientists or are there any teachers whom classes you want to like attend and you didn't get a chance to attend their classes?
Then I wouldn't know. Again, as I said, I can tell you of teachers whose classes made a big difference to me. So the physics faculty members like Professor Mani in IIT, Professor Jen Kumar Bhattacharya, Professor Kalyan Banerjee, those courses I could attend, and they made a big difference to me. Uh, Learning has two parts to it. I mean, again, this is a very personal thing. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, wow, now the Harvard courses are available on the net, so we can learn from the best, so-called best people." Teaching is not that. Okay, it depends on two things. One is information being given, but also assimilation of information, and that typically is very different in a classroom versus listening to an online lecture because that interaction is not there. And I think it's very vital for people not to be misled into thinking that you can replace all that interactive part of it, through what currently is possible with, looking at recordings. I do not think that's something that, um, there's a big gap. In fact, pandemic taught me that very well because in ICER I taught, and I had to teach a course online. And I really feel for the students because the lectures are all recorded, they're there, and hopefully people looking at them will say they're fine lectures. But I don't think I could communicate um, to the students as well. Okay,
Great.
so I think that is something that should is an important thing to realize that having teachers and the opportunity to learn, it's not necessarily a renowned person would teach better. It's a question, there's a guidance that a teacher can give, a sincere teacher, which you may not, find. And you should enjoy what you have, the opportunity, whatever opportunity you have, make the best of. So even if you are in a not so, famous place with lots of people, there are teachers who are willing to teach well, learn from them. And of course, you can listen to other things, but not at the expense of the human interaction with learning.
तो सर वैसे तो आपके पास उतना समय होता नहीं, खाली समय, बट वेन एवर यू गेट फ्री टाइम, सो अपने फ्री टाइम में, अपने मी टाइम में आप क्या करना पसंद करते हैं?
That's an embarrassing question. And पहले जब मैं अपना रिसर्च ही करता था, ज्यादा नहीं तो बहुत बुक्स पढ़ता था. I think one message I should tell you is getting into something like LIGO-India can really, really take all your time away. So, and do your research. So I also continued my research in cosmological background as well as this thing. But I'm not saying this to kind of, dissuade people from doing it. But that's an excitement, right? So you have time, you have the energy, and you think you're doing something which you are convinced is important. I think that's what I did. So in fact, that's a major worry. I really do not have too many hobbies, except that I love watching birds, so whenever I go for morning walks and all that. So that's, I've been fortunate to stay in beautiful campuses. Birds, nature, that kind of thing. But if you want a very clear hobby, I mean, I listen to music, but at a level which is
What kind of music?
I was brought up a lot from Ravinder Sangit, so now given the limited time I have, if I have to listen to something, I just go back to that. So I'm not really up on the latest stuff. Uh, Movies occasionally, but again, very limited. So I don't want to embarrass myself. But yeah, I mean, but I don't regret it. As I said, everyone has a thing. I mean, I feel that this is the time to put in as much energy in what I can achieve through that. And I I mean, I find my relaxation there too.
So, what's your favorite food to have anytime?
Again, that's not an area I really worry about too much. I was brought up in
Why?
hostel food in Kanpur. No, I mean,
So you must have craved for something like desserts or
no,
something.
no desserts, but I enjoy light food. I also enjoy a lot of cuisines that I had. I mean, for example, things I am pretty much at home in Europe, for example, where some of the places have absolutely fantastic food. Indian food, of course, I was brought up on Bengali food, but then, as I said, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Maharashtra. I'm now spending in Karnataka. So uh, again, I'm not very stuck on the food part. Gastronomy is not really my, something that occupies my mind at all. But if there's good food, I love it. But what I'm saying is, I don't, I'm not planning for it, or if we are going to a nice restaurant, of course, where they have nice places which I enjoy. I had initially few students from Iran. I love their cuisine, and so that kind of food. Uh, and of course, like this thing. But then in the South India also, there are very interesting things I'm discovering. I mean, our cooks here have been dishing up a lot of interesting non-vegetarian South Indian dishes, which you would not find in hotels. I mean, so there are few names that but many of them they dish up is quite interesting. So yeah, I'm broadly receptive to many kinds of food, but it's not as if I spend it like if I'm in visiting some city here or abroad. It's not as if I think, okay, now that I'm going to Delhi, I should go to Kareem's or I'll go to this. That doesn't occupy my mind at this point.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, at last, one advice for the students who have been listening to this, and what advice would you like to give them?
The advice I would like to give is, in life, there is always a space for you to grow and occupy and do well. Okay, so, it's not preordained in school, your school grades, your exam grades, be open and try to experience. Experience is the main teacher in your life. Experience, and your heart will tell you what you really would like to do, and follow your heart because that's where you will excel. You cannot be told to do something uh, by peers or parents or family relatives, you know and there is a lot of space. There's no, people are, I find, very very anxious about, oh, am I going to be in a job which will pay. I know now many instances of people who have excelled only after they have found their real calling, and some very late. I mean, very interesting. So these are the kind of things I would love to write about also. Uh, so I think the thing is, India is young and the opportunity is immense. And there is nothing like a good profession versus a bad profession or a calling, right? So just be open and experience, and then you know. But once you have found something, the trick to excel is to dedicate and focus. I think that part, is very important. You have to work uh, very hard to be at the top, right?
Okay.
And that's very important. But where you want to do that is up to you.
Okay, so that was very nice to listen from you, and thank you very much, sir, for joining.
Okay, thank
And
you.
थैंक यू फॉर एंड आई वुड लाइक टू टेल माय ऑडियंस, भाई मेरे पास जूम का सब्सक्रिप्शन वगैरह नहीं है, मेरा 40 मिनट में वो हो जाता है, तो बार बार उसको वो करना मतलब बार बार रीजॉइन करना पड़ता है. तो सर वाज वेरी नाइस एंड he gave me his Zoom link so that we can record this meeting at one go. So that was very nice. Thank you, sir, for that also.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining and thank you for sharing your views. I hope I would get a chance to meet you in person, and we'll talk about a lot of things. Now I
Yeah,
have.
if you're in NPL, we have a lot to talk about because I have not been to that place in a long time. But one thing I miss saying is one of the reasons probably physics is what I chose is because we had a lot of uncles and aunts who were scientists in NPL or IARI. The fact that we were near an academic environment probably shaped lots of scientists from that area. East Patel Nagar has produced at least 6, 7 scientists that I'm aware of.
जी, जी, जी.
Very, very good place.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing me in touch with your followers and people who are listening. I hope they find it interesting. Thank you.